Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
Beach FM, and here he is once again. Many people look forward to this every week, and we try to make it every week. It's great to welcome back to the radio Ralph McAlister. Good morning to you, sir.
And good morning to you. And I promise after my rave about Rage and Trump not last week, I'm not going to rave about anything as negative as him. But
well,
I'm going to
not even if I say $750 tax.
Oh, no, $750 twice.
Oh, yes.
Over 2 years, yeah. Well, I can't wait for the debate tomorrow. Are you going to be watching it? Or
I'm going to be doing my very best. My life is not my own these days, Ralph. I seem to have this Machiavellian character pulling strings. I wish I could track him or her down. But if I'm not dancing to the tune, I shall do my very best.
I love the idea of the Machiavelli. I mean, I could become your prince, if you like.
Well, if it's not Trump, who is it today, sir?
Well, it's Jo Nesbos, that's Nesbo, who, if you've got any knowledge of thriller writing, you would know who Jo Nesbos is, because he's one of the best Norwegian noir thriller writers of all time, really. He's right up there with the best. He's written, I think it's 12 novels, thrillers about, with the central character of Harry Hole, his cantankerous, a bit like John Rebus and the other books by Ian Rankin. But Nesbo has been in his career. He's been a footballer. He's in his 50s now, but he also had his own pop group. And he started writing these thrillers, and now I think there's something like over 40 million of his books have been sold worldwide. He's published in about 50 different countries, but the one I'm going to talk about briefly with you today it's just come out. It's called The Kingdom, and it's a standalone, what we call a standalone. In other words, you don't have to have read 10 of Harry Hole thrillers. This one is a standalone. His last one was a standalone called Macbeth, and it was a reworking of Macbeth, a modern sort of interpretation of the story, which I didn't actually like very much. I didn't think it worked. But then Macbeth is one of my favorite plays, and I feel not plays, the whole business of the plot. But Nesbo is right back onto form with this. And let me give you a brief outline of the story. It's about two brothers. The parents are dead just in the first couple of chapters because they've had an accident, we think. And Roy is left as a 15-year-old, or 16-year-old probably, to look after his younger brother, Carl. And so the whole story is about Roy and Carl and their relationship, and going back into the relationship more particularly with their father in the early parts of the novel. It's a very slow beginning. It's very unlike Nesbo. He plunges you in immediately in the first prologue with the death of a dog, which is really quite upsetting, even though you haven't got to know the dog. But the story then goes on that between Roy and Carl, they're inseparable, and they've got a very special bond. And you begin to wonder in the first 40 or 50 pages how special that bond is. And it begins to take you into very dark areas of the human psyche. It's also very, very intriguing. So as you think, oh, no, this is not going to happen, is it? And it does. It sucks you in even more intensely. Carl goes off after a couple of years, to America. And the second part of the story, he comes back to the sleepy village in the North Norwegian countryside, and he wants to start a hotel. He's got a new wife, Shannon, and there are all sorts of plans going to revolutionize the village life. to make them all fortunes and so on. And Carl is at the center of it. So you've got this plot, but things start going awry. And as you get to about the 50th or 100th page, you really can't put it down. I know it's a cliche, John, but he's just so clever. He builds the atmosphere. He not only builds the atmosphere, there are not so many killings as there are in some of his books, but it's rich with detail and it's terrifying. And it's just, I can't go into great detail about the plot because I don't want to give it away for people who want to read the book. So it's one of those non-reviews or half-reviews, which I've got to say to your listeners, look, just trust me. If you haven't read Nesbo before, start with this one. You don't have to go back 12, 20 years. You can just start with this, and then if you like it, you can go back to Harry Hole. But, oh boy, the actual cracks and the veneer of village life, the deceit, the terrible things that happen really you've got to have a fairly strong stomach once you get to about halfway through. And I might say it's one of his longer books. It comes in at 550 pages.
Goodness.
But I don't need to boast about my tenacity because Nesbo is in charge, and he makes sure that once you get through the first slow beginning, you're not going to put the kingdom down. You're going to start reading, and you're not going to stop reading until you find out the rather horrific ending, which again, I will leave up to your listeners at your readers who nip into Paper Plus and get a copy of what will be one of the top best-selling novels of the year.
Wow. Wow. Ralph, how long did it take you to consume 500 and something pages?
Well, you won't. You know, I mean, people say this to me, you're a lucky man, Ralph, you're a fast reader. I don't think I'm particularly fast, but I certainly don't skim. And I started it on the other day at night, and I finished it the following afternoon.
My goodness gracious me, that's amazing.
Well, thank you. But I do, I mean, if I don't, well, you know by now, if I don't read at least 3 books a week or more, I feel bereft. So, and I don't read stuff that I don't want to. It's not like, you know, I've got to read another book. I'll just grab this. I've got 3 others I've got to talk to you about for the next weeks, but I haven't started them yet because I don't like reading 4 books at once. You know, I don't know if you do this, do you?
No way. No, I can only cope with one at a time.
Okay. Well,
and incidentally, I love that phrase. I don't know whether you coined it or not, Norwegian noir. It's exactly right. It's been one of the major literary movements in the last 30 or 40 years, really, hasn't it been?
It's just, there have been whole essays written about why it's Scandinavian and all that. I don't know, you see, it's just, there's a dark side. I remember when I was working with Vincent Ward on Vigil, which was one of his first great movies.
Oh, yes,
there was a darkness about that. And he was only 22 at the time. And that darkness was an example of New Zealand noir. We'd never call it New Zealand noir. It's always Norwegian or Scandinavian noir, N-O-I-R. And it's become part of our culture. And thank goodness for that.
Ralph McAlister, thank goodness for you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Once again, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you, sir.
You just keep warm, won't you?
106.3 Beach FM.